everyone, welcome back to Streed's Guide to Fraggle Rock. Today I'm reviewing Season 1, Episode 23, The Beast of Blue Rock. This episode starts out with Sprocket stricken with sickness, so Doc recommends that he eat some chicken soup like his mother once did when he was a boy. At first, Sprocket is reluctant to try it, but Doc mentions it's a soup specifically catered to dogs, prompting Sprocket to at least give it a try. Meanwhile, Doc attempts to find a solution to Sprocket's ailment.
Ah! Veterinarians! Don't worry, Sprocket, you're gonna get well real soon.
Back at Fraggle Rock, Wembley is excitedly rushing to his cave to tell Gobo some good news, but gets distracted by Gobo reading his Uncle Matt's book about the legend of the Beast of Blue Rock.
One of the regions of the universe that remains uncharted is the frightening lair of the Beast of Blue Rock. Wow. Fraggle legend tells of the ancient explorers who ventured there, never to be seen again. Ooh. Even I, traveling Matt, was unable to complete this journey, so I leave it to those who come after me. That's me.
Yeah.
To enter Blue Rock and face the beast on behalf of Fraggle kind.
Apparently, Blue Rock is only visible 2 days after the Doozer equinox, before it promptly vanishes for a whole year. So Gobo must begin his trek today and enter Blue Rock by tomorrow. Wembley's worried about Gobo since this is reportedly a very perilous and terrifying journey, but Gobo remains confident in his abilities, using his Uncle Matt as an example, citing his latest adventure in outer space. In Matt's postcard, he recounts running into some civilians mowing their lawns, mistakenly identifying the mowers as beastly voracious pets. After the postcard, Gobo invites Wembley to come along on his foray into Blue Rock, and Wembley is delighted until he remembers his obligation to Red in her first annual invitational splashathon. This heavily contrasts with Gobo's plan, so he ushers Wembley to make a decision, and in typical Wembley fashion, he is physically unable to decide.
Yeah! Wembley!
Oh, boy, making a decision sure is hard.
Back in the Great Hall, we're introduced to the legendary Large Marvin.
Dumb old cave trip?
Oh, come on, Red. Forget about Large Marvin.
How can you forget about Large Marvin? He's the fattest Fraggle in the world.
In Marvin's first appearance, he's portrayed as a big-shot celebrity, but in his later appearances, he's practically relegated to the role of the village idiot. I don't really have any quandaries with this change, I just thought it notable to mention Marvin's subtle character shift that largely goes unrecognized. Anyways, Red's not pleased about Gobo wanting everyone to come along on this trip, since she's been planning this event for a whole year. So Gobo suggests that they take a vote on it, and Wembley is left with the deciding vote.
Come on, Wembley, I thought we decided you're coming with me.
Well, you decided! This vote is rigged!
Well,
No, it's not. No, I'll stay here with you.
Fine,
I
the
will.
cave trip is off. Okay, Marvin.
After Wembley decides, Gobo is unjustifiably furious and throws a bitch fit. He literally gave Wembley a choice, and when he happened to decide against him, Gobo takes it extremely personally and basically bullies poor Wembley. This is definitely not one of my favorite Gobo moments.
Oh, I thought I could count on you. I thought you were my friend.
Aren't I?
Oh, some friend. You voted against me.
But that doesn't mean we're not friends.
I don't want to talk about it.
Wembley tries to reason with Gobo, but he's unwilling to listen and makes another unnecessarily cruel remark, saying he doesn't need him, and props to Wembley for standing up for himself and telling Gobo what for. And even more props to the yellow guy for wishing Gobo good luck on his journey, despite him being a twat. Some time passes, and Wembley's feeling morose, blaming himself and feeling lonesome without Gobo. This is the first night Wembley's ever had to spend the night alone, so he's reasonably startled by the eerie quiet in the nearly empty, dimly lit cave. This leads to one of Fraggle Rock's most painfully relatable songs.
The room is feeling kind of scary, and lots of things have come to stare at me. I know they're just imaginary. I still don't like to be here on my own. 'cause I'm not brave like heroes, but I'll be brave as I can be alone on my own.
I know exactly how Wembley feels here. When I was young, and even now as an adult, I occasionally fear being alone in a quiet, eerie, collisionous room. I also have an issue with paranoia, so that definitely isn't doing me any favors. This scene always gave me a sense of comfort, though. Made me feel less afraid in situations similar to Wembley's. Back in the workshop, Sprocket is doing everything he can to avoid his impending vet appointment, and shenanigans ensue.
Sprocky, we're gonna be late. Sprocky.
Meanwhile, back in the Rock, Boober arrives to notify Wembley that the Splashathon is about to start and notices Gobo forgot to take his pickaxe. So Wembley visits the trash heap for advice, and admittedly this blue screen effect is aged very poorly. Since the trash heap is unable to bring Gobo back, Wembley rises to the occasion and vows to find Gobo himself. Marjorie is impressed with Wembley's staunch bravery and bestows upon him some wisdom, in the form of a song, of course.
When you start and be scared all night, brave boy, jump up, gonna make it right. Jump up, turn around, cross over. Here's a spell, gonna make you well every time you're telling it.
Back in the Rock, Wembley prepares for his venture into Blue Rock, while Boober cautions him of the dangers present in such an uncharted and terrifying place, warning him of bolo monsters, Gridgian spiders, and poisoned cacklers, which we'll see later on. Wembley remains undeterred yet cautious and begins his journey. Back in the Great Hall, Boober informs Red and Moki that Wembley went off into Blue Rock by himself, and the gang set out to find him, Red reluctantly abandoning her Splashathon duties for the sake of rescuing Wembley. Meanwhile, Wembley traverses the eerie cavern on the brink of Blue Rock.
Boy, this isn't any fun, but I'm not scared. Maybe I am scared. You know, how'd that song go? Jump around. Oh no, jump up, turn over.
The gang shows up to help Wembley, and Boober spots a doozer construction, so Wembley attempts to climb it, nearly falling, and he's catapulted across the cave. I noticed there's some reused footage from the Finger of Light as well. At first glance, nothing seems to be wrong with this scene, but I can't help but wonder, why is there a random doozer construction in such a supposedly terrifying place? Another thing to note, considering how hazardous this specific spot is, why did the doozers build it here? Personally, this construction feels like a plot device for Wembley to get across. Anyways, Wembley gets close to Blue Rock, but sees an intimidating shadow lumbering forward.
Gobo might be in trouble.
Back in the workshop, Sprocket admits that he's afraid of going to the vet, but Doc comforts him and says he'll be there with him the whole way. Meanwhile, in the heart of Blue Rock, Wembley finally finds Gobo and gives him his pickaxe. Gobo is appreciative, but admits he's afraid of what's beyond Blue Rock and starts wimbling. To boost Gobo's spirits, the two start singing the Wimbledon song.
Well, when I'm Wimbledon West, I take the friend I like best, so we can wimble, wimble, wimble side by side.
And when we're Wimbledon South, we stick our feet in our mouth, and we just wimble, wimble, wimble as we ride.
Gobo is still distraught, however, and gives up, calling himself a failure. This breaks Wembley's heart, so he bashes the rock, and the two share a beautiful moment together.
You mean you're doing this for me?
Oh, you're my best friend, Gobo.
The two enter Blue Rock and discover the shocking truth. The trash heap appears and states she was the one that started the rumor of Blue Rock herself. In reality, Wembley and Gobo have already fought the beast being fear itself. Now, I have an issue with this twist, and I'll explain it more in depth in the conclusion segment. Anyways, Marjorie returns Gobo and Wembley back to Fraggle Rock, and they win the invitational Splashathon, much to the dismay of Large Marvin. And back in the workshop, Doc returns home with Sprocket fresh from the vet, feeling brave.
Oh, feeling fearless now, eh? Good, because it's time to take your medicine.
This episode was definitely an improvement over Moki's funeral, but still flawed. The biggest issue I have with this episode is the fact that Gobbo was downright cruel to Wembley and never got reprimanded for it. He didn't even apologize, he just felt bad that he lacked the gumption to break into Blue Rock on his lonesome. I also felt the twist of the beast being fear itself was a cheap move, somewhat reminiscent of the disappointing Invisible Gargoyle. The moral of the episode, that being facing your fears, also feels like a retread of the terrible tunnel. Even though this episode has some glaring issues and wasn't an unpleasant experience, Blue Rock may not be as frightening and creepy as the Great Outer Maze, but it's still quite an atmospheric place with its own inhabitants of unfamiliar cave creatures, a sense of forebode and unknown doom. As per usual, the songs are great and jaunty. As much as I deeply relate to Brave Alone, I'm gonna have to give my favorite song of the episode to Wemblin Fool. Overall, this was a perfectly good episode that could have used a little tinkering when it comes to the writing, specifically on Gobbo's part. I'm gonna give this episode a doozer stick. Above mediocre, but below a masterpiece. Well guys, that was the review and I will see you all next time.